right. We are, of course, here to celebrate Vincent Cooper's new book tonight. Vincent Cooper is a Chicano poet from Los Angeles. He is the author of Where the Reckless Ones Come to Die and now Zarzamora, Poetry for Survival. He currently resides in San Antonio. Welcome, Vincent.
Thank you all for braving the rain for me. So, I want to thank Malvern, of course. We've been a fan of this space for as long as we've been able to come by and see it. I want to thank Michael Knoll for his handsomeness and his kindness. Victoria, for without you, none of this is possible. Laura, thank you. I believe in your poetry. You know, and Patty, I mean, you and your father, I believe in you both so much. I gave in, and I did the ancestry stuff. I gave them all my stuff because I'm 39, and Cooper has been, I guess, plaguing me since I was in the schoolyard, and some other kid said, "Your last name's Cooper. You're white. You're not one of us." And I pushed him, and then he punched me. After that, I didn't question it much, because in LA you could be like, "Hey bro, we're cool, it doesn't matter," you know? But it always stuck with me, and since my father wasn't around, it was just stories from my mother and relatives. "Oh, I remember him. He was just some guy your mom was with. He was kind of white." "Yeah, he was white. He was white." And I was like, "Really?" You know, and in LA, Chicano, you know, being Chicano is a very serious thing. Especially, at least in the 80s, in my period. And I think in 80s San Antonio, it wasn't so much, but now it's kind of like a word, you know, Latinx has come up as well. So I did it. It's not my real last name. He changed his name. My grandfather's actually from Mexico. His last name is Orantes. I had to find this out a very difficult way, and it all happened within the last week. Now I'm flooded with pictures of this man who is handsome, and he's a musician, and he's obviously a womanizer, and he's all the things of all the men of those times, you know? He had a family over here and another family over here. He didn't care about these boys, but he cared about this family. And my father, well, he had me and he had other kids. He cared for them and not for me. So that's what I'm going through right now. Switching gears. This is called the call and response. If I die in a combat zone, box me up and ship me home. Put me in a set of dress blues, comb my hair and shine my shoes. Pin my medals upon my chest and tell my mama I did my best. Mama, mama, don't you cry. Marine Corps motto is do or die. That's a Marine Corps cadence. The millions of skulls in the dirt, sands, and oceans of earth do not sing do or die. They would rather be alive. But the reality of war has eroded them. Population control, the killing business of humanity. The rich and white, hateful, are in the killing business, and business is good. This is called Johnny. Mama told Johnny not to go downtown. The Marine Corps recruiter was hanging around. My son said he wants to be a Marine, like me. A Marine like me. You're not going to hack it, I say. You can't even wake up at 6 a.m. There's no urgency in your body. You're not ready. Just go to college. Be an engineer for NASA. Your grandma wants you to fight for Trump and Jesus Christ. It might settle you down and make a man out of you. You're not going to make it, I say. And I'll be damned if you come home on a Greyhound, dishonorable discharge forever. I won't let you down, he says. Yes, you will, I say. This isn't the same Corps. You can try to be an airman like your biological father. but there's no way you'll survive the Marines. You won't even make it past the scale at MEPS. He looks at me, says fuck you with his face, pushing his portholes up the bridge of his nose. 18 years ago, I picked up the phone and heard my uncle say, "Hey, I heard you want to be a jarhead. Mijo, you're not going to make it. You'll never be able to hack it. I know you. I know your personality. You won't make it, but I can't stop you. Stop eating tacos." Yes, sir. One day at 2 a.m., Johnny left us for a girl and Xennial freedom, whatever that is. This is called Chingazos. My Uncle Jody was a brutal, brutal man. He was a murdering heroin addict man that I loved dearly. In no way am I trying to promote that, but I don't know what else to say. It's a choice I have to make with a lot of these men that I grew up with. You either take it or you don't. Take it or leave it. And he was a fucking brutal man. He killed people, and he wanted to kill my father. There's a scene where my father was kicking my mother in her stomach while she was on the ground in the kitchen. And knowing that Jody was a murdering man, he's actually coming down the block, and they're fighting in the house. And my dad sees Jody through the window and runs out the back door. Jody comes in and sees my mother on the ground while my dad was running down the street the other way. Chingazos. Eggs make her nauseous from having worked on the ranch so long, killing, plucking, and killing chickens, cleaning chickens. In a small house on Hidalgo Street, my mother asked me how I wanted my eggs cooked. My 5-year-old self says, over easy. We exchange smiles and work at becoming familiar again. Then, the kitchen is darkened by Uncle Jody. His brick brown skin complements a mustache he will never wear again. A body slim as bacon. "Que chingados miras," he says to me. His craggy hands close to a fist. He sits, crossing his legs. "What the fuck are you looking at?" I look down to visit eggs. Mother tells him not to be mean with me. I don't give a fuck. Look at his face. He looks like his fucking piece of shit father. If I ever see him, his face gnarls, making a stabbing motion with his hand. I slowly tear over salty eggs, for fear of the imaginary knife and fear at the possible murder of my absent father. "Are you scared of me?" A sinister grin. "Answer me! Bibi, teach your son some manners." My mother, his sister, pleads with him to leave me alone, but doesn't turn away from the stove. We share a pause. When my plate is empty and taken away, we're left to study each other. There is a thump in the corner of the kitchen and voices in the next room. Jody makes another vow to kill. His eyes don't blink. Words muffle. Face sneers. I look to my mother for help. I turn back only to see he has walked past me, and that last swallow of eggs felt like a punch to my throat. 2. Jody has AIDS. Mother. I'm getting really sick, but I can't tell them. They'll treat me like a guinea pig and tease me with medication. A letter from Jody. We wait on new letters from prison. Only so long, then decisions are made without Jody. Weeks later, I walk home. Mother is at the top of the stairs and says, "Jody's dead." Heavy footsteps up the stairs, numb legs. We hug and cry for Tony too, who's in stage 5 or 6 post-death. Voided plans and voids that cannot be filled. We drive to San Antonio, where the reckless ones come to die. I stand in front of Jody's casket and shriek to howl. It's the only sound I can make. The cruelest of the reckless ones, my savior, this corpse looks nothing like him. Over time, I will dream that I peek into a living room and see Jody on a cot with muddy grass stains on his suit. Relatives taking turns punching him in the chest, each chingazo harder than the last. He will finally wake up, and we'll all rush to hug him. I'll never forget his face, disturbed. He'd finally been sleeping so well. My stomach turning like the dirt from the grave he was pulled out of, until he dies again. They continue punching him until I wake up. Even memories rot like wood. His death is an invasive rose bush, blooming, dying, blooming and dying. So Joey was rough. He was my babysitter for a little while there, and since he was dying of AIDS, I did not know that, because even still in the 80s, it was still that time frame where you couldn't say it because of this illusion that you were homosexual or something. And the family didn't want to say that. You know, no, he got it from sex from a woman, or he got it from drug use, was the main thing. So it was all so secret, but I could hear it, and we just spent every day together until the end. This is called Eulogies. We try so hard to remember last words, just an image of the greatest man we've ever known, smiling for each of us personally in a blue electrician's uniform, his hero outfit. And when Mike died, La Familia was wounded, all of us bleeding out of our stomachs and mouths, catching and smearing each other's blood, drinking blood to calm nerves. He fought death for about a week or so. It was an expensive fight. When the bills came in, he figured it was cheaper to die. And when Danny died, it was long overdue, according to my mother. He might not make it to Christmas, but he did, 2 years in a row. Then on his third stand, he lasted until August, died like Elvis. I know he wasn't ready. There were a few more stories to tell, girlfriends to have, jokes to give, and one more trip to Oxnard, California. And when Jody died, it was expected and relieving for some. The few who wept at his casket were privileged to know a street demon hero. When I think of him now, I see a man standing behind a tree, peeking over to see his ex-wife, dropping their daughter off at school. Glimpses of his daughter Dana was never enough, and us all, eventually. His smile, too, was just as dangerous as his scowl. And when Jefe died, I swore I no longer knew this man. He looked like a white-wrung towel that was twisted and gnarled, every drop wicked, a gift to the grass, then hung up on a clothesline facing a familiar sun. If I was given one wish, I'd wish for him to tell a story. We shared a gift, silence. When he returned to the earth, that too was a gift. And when Tony died, the bones of these westside streets fractured. Nothing ever healed. This next poem, people say, why do you always write about the men? What about the women in your family? Or are you just as toxic as all these men? I do write about the women. I actually write more about the women, but I don't publish them for whatever reason. It's not misogynistic, I swear. This is Beatrice. It's my mother. We have a relationship, I think. She lives about a mile away from me and we hardly talk, but I don't know, we just pick up where we left off. So she's like one of those people who say, you know, when I die, and you know, we're little kids, I'm like, you're not gonna die, you know, you're fine. When I die, I want this, this, and this. So this is one of those poems. Beatrice. Just throw my ashes into a lake or ocean, a beautiful park or the mountains in California. I won't care or feel a thing. I don't want you or Louis to stress over it. My mother told my brother and I she wanted to be cremated because it's cheaper and it's better to go out that way, instead of visiting a grave to leave flowers. Our glance shifts side to side like a Kit Kat clock in the kitchen. We were waiting for the turkey to be done, but we sat there and had to listen. We were young, and she wanted to talk about her death before football started. It was snowing, and we wanted to play outside with our cousins. Mom wants to get cremated. Check. 25 years later, mijo, I've instructed Louis on what to do when I die. I want to be cremated, no ands, ifs, or buts. It's cheaper and a lot more convenient for you both. I'm doing it for you guys. But I want Louis to do it since he's fair and smart. You're too cabron. You may not fulfill my wishes, and should you interfere, well, I'll come back and haunt your ass. Trust me, Mom, I won't interfere. But deep down I know, she knows, and the energies around us know. The sealed lips of our heroes know. Father Time, laughing at his watch, knows that she wants a valiant hospital stay, a great death, with every character she's ever met, watching Louis and me draped over her, communing in her last breaths, with nurses making the sign of the cross, smiling with mocos and tears, and a fantastic mesquite smoke entrance into her next life. She will have a mole on her cheek again, long brown hair parted in the middle, a dimpled smile that cannot be erased. Louis and I will walk our separate ways, consoled by a sea of reddened eyeballs. Mother, you were always ready for death. Thank you for having your paperwork in order. Throughout my book, there's a few letters from my uncle, my uncle Danny, who was in prison while I was in high school. I had moved to Vegas with my mother, and I was against that move because I was having some kind of Saved by the Bell life in California, where I thought I was like the Chicano Zach Morris or something, AC Slater or whatever. And like, are you taking me away from this? And I went over there where it was very racist and it was very Mexican on one side, black on another, and white on another. And I was not really used to that. We're very mixed in LA. So over there, like my first day of school, I walked in and I was literally spit on by a group of black guys on my face. And that was like my introduction to Vegas. And no, I didn't fight them because I would have gotten my ass kicked. So I literally just wiped it off and went off, and I was all Kurt Cobain for the rest of the years. So my uncle went to prison, and I had never really talked to Danny before, and I wrote letters back there. So I made it a point to write letters to him. Why not? Which might be weird for a 14-year-old or a 13-year-old, but we wrote. We wrote every week, and the letters were intense, and they helped me. Here's one. A letter from Danny, 1995. Que vo gente. Just writing these few lines to let you know that I received your letter and was very happy to hear from you. I heard the good news about you losing weight. Just don't overstress yourself. I was reading your letter the other day and I found it very interesting. It made me think about how life really should be like. Everybody looks at life different, but not too many people are as confident as you are. Maybe that's why they're so far away from their dreams. I wish I could see life from your point of view, but I'm not too sure I can do that. I've been through so much shit in my life that it's hard to put much confidence in anything but the present. My future concerns me a lot, but I have to take it day by day. Not that there's anything wrong with thinking about the future. It's just sometimes you have to watch what you wish for. You might just get it. I don't know if I want to be rich or famous. I don't think I could handle it just now. Money and fame are good, but if you don't know how to handle it, it can get you into trouble. Not that I've ever had any fucking money or fame, but just take a look at the rock stars. Some of them are blowing their brains out. Anyway, regardless of what I think, don't let anything stop you from pursuing your dreams. And remember me in your book. I'm the handsome one. I'm glad Mom and Dad are going to Vegas to visit. Well, Vinny, I don't have much more to say. I will write again soon, and take care of yourself and your mom. P.S. Are you going to have any naked women in your movie? So those letters saved me. Like, I don't know how many there are, and I don't know whatever happened to the ones I sent him. I'm assuming they're lost. There's no way But I'm hoping for like, in 5 years, somebody knocks on my door and goes, "This is from Danny." I'm like, "What?" "This is all of your shit from when you sent it to him." I'm going to read something else here. Quick change. More depressing stuff. All right. A few years back, I met up with a cousin. Her name's Monica, and I was really trying to have a relationship. I wanted to have the 1970s and the 2000s. So I moved to San Antonio and I bought a house in the westside so that all my uncles could be there, so that I could take care of all of them, and if they were going to be junkies, fine. You know, my grandmother gave up the house. She moved on with her life, so they were all on the streets, fending for themselves. And I wanted everybody to come over, and nobody really ever did. That was for the last 10 years, and I no longer live there anymore. So I ran into Monica, who was a cousin, first cousin. Very strange, and we wanted to know each other. We wanted to, like we were kids again on the ranch. I saw her at downtown San Antonio. She had an entourage because she sold drugs. And we met, and we were very happy to see each other, and we made all these plans to want to meet up. And on the flip side, my grandmother, who lived so close to me, was dying for people to see her. She wanted people to visit after being so cruel to everybody all her life. This is called Do Not Resuscitate. She died last night from an overdose here in San Antonio, brother said. His voice was firm. We've had this conversation too many times. I closed my eyes and saw Monica running in chaclas. Cousins playing tag at the ranch. A memory of us laughing under a cloudless sky. Her hair up in 2 chongos. Her dress light blue. My hand reaching out to tag her. Today, Grandma says she's so tired she wants to die. Tramadol pill bottle empty. Do not resuscitate written on the paperwork at the senior community living apartments. She has seen almost all of her sons die. Ernest died in her arms as a toddler. Tony, her favorite. Jody, her least. Mike, the most important. Danny, the most handsome. Jefe, a husband over 50 years, and now her grandchildren are dying. All the relatives that mattered to her are dead. My children crawl all over her living room, smiling, chasing each other to the bedroom, then back to Grandma's slippers. She sings songs in Spanish, claps her hands, kisses them, smiles back at them, and when we go back home, she still wants to die. Got room for one more? One more? I'm going to read this. This is called Siempre. I never get to read this one. 6:40 a.m. The number 660 bus smells like shit, toxic piss, and sweaty armpits. Eyelids are shut. Our bodies sway back and forth to Westover Hills. Elliott Smith's Waltz number 2 on repeat. We arrive. I thank the bus driver who remembers me from riding during my second divorce, carless and broke. I look toward the shimmering charcoal washed sky above the call center I work in. A Tangelo sunburst aches to burst through. I remember a sky like this 30 years ago. I was 6. My brother, my first hero, walked with me to Mark Twain Elementary. Then he'd hop a bus to Lanier High School. Mother was at work, depressed. We all shared a tiny apartment on Zelia Street. This was the last time we lived together as a family. The reckless ones were still alive. I never wanted to leave San Antonio. 28 years ago, Mother and I drove to each uncle to say goodbye. We were leaving back to California. She needed to bid farewell to her brothers. Our last stop was with Tony. our barrio prince, exited a thrift store, his son Lenny atop his shoulders. Michael Anthony stood with dirt on his face, holes in the knees of his jeans, a finger curled in Tony's belt loop. Monica wore a white dress with stains, tiny Estella, hair braided, her hand inside Uncle Tony's hand. Mother hit the brakes. She signaled to Tony, who rushed his head in the passenger window. She told him to keep in touch and goodbye. Tony's face dropped as his kids tell me, stay with us, live with us. They must have been the poorest family I'd ever seen, all smiling, all together. Yeah, baby, let Vicente stay with us. My mother shook her head for reasons I'll never understand. He pleaded for me, and I was ready to stay. I breathed in the cold front weather and it's 1980-something one more time. I consider my family of 6 our fideo to their fideo. And oh, how I wanted to stay, to never leave, to always be Westside, to be familia, siempre. We drove away. My chest popped, my throat filled, I could not swallow. I turned back to see through the back window, Tony and his kids waving to me. They walked away together, beautiful and poor. A year later, Tony died. I remember walking to school as I'm walking to work. My brother lives a few miles away, and my mother and I still live in the West Side. The truth is, we are here, and we keep our distance. Thank you, guys.